Hello everybody, welcome back to my gaming review. Today I want to make another video, and on this video I'm going to be talking about the PS Classic. Now it looks like a PS1, but it is not. As you can see, it's a really small system. So this is the PS Classic mini console that came out by Sony, the console that's based on the PS1, and it comes with 20 built-in PS1 games. You got USB controllers, HDMI, and then a USB power cable that goes right there. So the PS Classic came out a little while back. I think it was like 2018, 2019 when it came out. I might be mistaken on that, but I got this when it first came out. It was originally I think it was like $50 or $30, so I got mine for like $50 on Amazon, a couple years ago. And a lot of people hate the PS Classic. A lot of people like to pick on the system and say it's a crappy little console that Sony made. I'm here to basically just defend the system and say that it really wasn't that bad of a console when it came out. Yes, you can actually I think it's like jailbreaking. You can jailbreak your PS Classic. You can actually add more games to your PS Classic. You can, instead of having 20 built-in games, you can have like 100 built-in games, using like a USB. And there's a whole bunch of videos on how to add more games to your PS Classic system. But I'm going to talk about the system by itself, without any modifications, without any other games. I'm going to just be talking about the system itself and what it came out with. So the PS Classic came out, and it came with 2 controllers with no joysticks, came with 20 built-in games, and an HDMI, plus I think like a power cable is what the system comes with the box. And during this time you had Nintendo was very successful with the mini consoles, as well as Sega. You had the Sega Genesis Mini, you had the Super Nintendo Mini, and then you had the NES Mini, or the NES Classic Edition, the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. That was a mini console. And you had the Sega Genesis Mini, which I already own the Sega Genesis Mini as well as having the PS Classic. But Nintendo and Sega were both very successful with their mini versions of their consoles. While when Sony made the PS Classic, it got a lot of hate. I mean, a whole bunch of YouTubers were like, this thing is terrible, this thing is crap, the 20 built-in games suck. And a lot of people just destroyed this thing when it came out. Those videos and people ranting about it and saying like, oh, it didn't come with Crash, oh, it didn't come with Spyro. I understand why people were pissed off about it. I understand that people wanted their favorite PlayStation 1 games on the system, but honestly, by itself, with the 20 games, you can actually have a lot of fun. So, I was one of those people who originally used it, and I was like, yeah, this kind of sucks, But, I've played it here and there. I play it every once in a while, and honestly, I can say I can have a lot of fun with the system, with the 20 built-in games built in. So, I played GTA 1, the original GTA. I had a blast playing that game. I played Rainbow Six Siege. I also had a blast playing that game. I loved playing Metal Gear Solid, Rayman, and also I think it's like Mr. Driller, where you have to drill down and you have to get the air bubbles so you stay alive. I also liked Destruction Derby, as well as I think the other one is called IntelliGcube, or it's like you have to basically break these blocks, and it tells you how good your IQ is. And there's also, I think the other game is called Jumping Flash, I think. But anyway, the games that this comes with are actually really fun games. I've played Rainbow Six Siege on the system. I actually really enjoyed that game. And I actually really enjoyed Metal Gear Solid and the other games I have said. And honestly, I do wish that Sony put Crash on the PS Classic. I do wish that it had Spyro and games like that. Or like Gran Turismo. Obviously, those are clear choices for Sony to make, and that's something a lot of gamers wanted with the PS Classic. But the games you get are not bad games. I mean, Twisted Metal. I love Twisted Metal. I could play Twisted Metal again and again and again for hours. And this system comes with Twisted Metal. Very fun game, very enjoyable game. I love playing as the clown guy, Sweet Tooth. But anyway, the other complaint that people had with the PS Classic was the controllers it came with had no joysticks, because when the PS1 first came out, it had no joysticks. So Sony decided to have no joysticks for the PS Classic, only a D-pad and buttons, which honestly I'm okay with. I understand they should have added joysticks, or they should have had a way to use your PS Classic maybe with a PS3 or PS4 controller. That would be cool. But a lot of people complain that you can't play some of the games because of the D-pad. That is a lie right there. I've been using D-pads my entire life. I played Ridge Racer on my PS Classic as well as Destruction Derby. I had no issues with the D-pad. I know people are really used to joysticks. I know people love, playing with the joysticks, and you're able to play racing games better that way. But using the D-pad is not going to kill you. And the PS Classic controllers are actually very comfortable. They fit very well in my hands, and the D-pad feels really nice. So, honestly, I think people overreacted when it came with the controllers, and Sony was just trying to be like, well, when the system originally launched, it had no joysticks, so they're trying to be original. They're trying to be like, hey, when the PS1 first came out, it had no joysticks, and that was it, So, I understand why Sony did that. But anyway, with that being said, this is my PS Classic. I've owned this since it launched, basically. Had this for years, and I do play it every once in a while. My favorite games on the PS Classic would be Twisted Metal, Rainbow Six Siege. I like Metal Gear Solid, as well as Jumping Flash and Twisted. And I already said Twisted Metal, didn't I? I also like Mr. Drillo and GTA on the console. I know this thing got a lot of hate. I know this thing wasn't very successful compared to Nintendo's classic mini consoles that they made. But honestly, people overreacted. A bunch of YouTubers hated it. A bunch of YouTubers were like, oh, don't buy it, it's a piece of crap. If you want something, just go out and buy it, If you want to try PS Classic, if you want to play, Twisted Metal, if you want to play Metal Gear Solid, if you want to play the original Rainbow Six Siege, and if you like the original GTA and Jumping Flash, then buy the console. You get 20 built-in games, and they're all very different games. You got shooting games, you have the racing games on the system, you have puzzle games on the system, and you have platforming games, as well as horror games, because this actually comes with Resident Evil. And I believe there's another game on the system that's like a horror game. But anyway, that being said, though, those games for everyone to play on the system, even though it's 20 games, you got platforms, shooting games, horror games. It comes with basically a variety of stuff. It's a good system to start off with, and if you've never owned a PlayStation 1, if you've never actually had a PlayStation 1, the PS Classic is your chance to actually experience the PS1 with HD on an HDMI TV. It's a good way to experience PlayStation 1. It's a good way to experience 20 classic games on the system. And even though it didn't come with Crash, even though it didn't come with Spyro and Gran Turismo and stuff, it is a good system. And it really is built very well. I mean, a lot of people said this thing is some people said the build quality is bad. It feels like a real PS1 console, just mini-sized. It feels good, and yeah. Also, the good thing with the PS Classic system is, unlike the original PlayStation 1, there was no laser, there's no power supply. You don't have to worry about your PS Classic having an issue, because there's no moving parts, there's no there's no disk drive, there's no laser, and there's no power supply. So, it's a reliable system that comes with 20 built-in games. In my opinion, they're very decent games. Not the best games, but they're very decent games that people could actually enjoy. And the PS Classic, even though it comes with no joysticks for the controls, even though it's just D-pads, the D-pads actually feel okay. And you can play all the games on the D-pad. It's not a big deal like people made it out to be. So, is the PS Classic worth it for people to buy? It all depends on what you think about the console. If you've never experienced PlayStation 1 or you've never owned one, I think this is a good way to experience a PS1, especially in 2023 and 2022 and so on. This is probably the best way to play. Well, not the best way, but it's one of the best ways to play PlayStation 1. The other best way is to have a PlayStation TV or PlayStation Vita, and you also can play PS1 games on your PlayStation 3. But again, you have to use the disc slot, which, again, lasers go bad. So, the PS Classic is probably the most reliable option, and you do get 20 games. Plus, you can technically just add games. You can add like 50 games to this thing. You can add 100 games to this thing. So, it really isn't that bad of a system. Obviously, when it first came out, only with 20 games, people had all these complaints about it, and everyone hated it and was ranting about it on YouTube. I'm just going to defend the system and be like, you know what, it's not that bad. I sat there and played a bunch of games on the system. I haven't played all 20, but I've played like 10 of them or 12 of them, and I had a very enjoyable experience. So, with that stuff being said, though, this has been the PlayStation Classic, my PS Classic system. Again, this came out a few years ago. I've had mine since launch, and I can tell you that it really isn't that bad of a console. It's not that big of a deal. If you want to see the actual full list, the 20-game list, because I'm not going to be able to name all the games in this video, but if you want to see the complete list, you can look it up on Google or a YouTube video to see the list of games on the console. Again, this thing was received very negatively, but it is a great system overall. Anyway, peace out, and this has been my PS Classic.